What up, everybody? DJ Anubis here with you on the Military Radio Podcast. Doing another movie review for you. Just got done checking out The Night House, directed by David Bruckner from 2021. Director is also responsible for movies like The Ritual, as well as VHS 94, as well as he's going to be doing the Hellraiser 2022 as well. So, just to give you a little idea on the director part of it. Visually, this movie is pretty cool. It's not super trippy, but it's got some nice little visual effects in there. And basically, the plot line is you have Rebecca Hall, the lead actress in this. Her name is Beth. She's dealing with the loss of her husband who committed suicide at their lake house. And it follows the aftermath of all of that and how she's dealing with it, as well as strange occurrences that happened to her while at the lake house. The main players, as I just mentioned, Rebecca Hall plays Beth. Can't remember the actor's name that plays Owen, who we see through some flashback footage, as well as just who she mentions and who's talked about a lot. But that Owen is the guy who was her husband. Sarah Goldberg is her best friend Claire, and then Vondi Curtis Hall plays the neighbor Mel, who appears here and there in the film as well. Uh, Obviously, the first thing we see is the after the funeral, Claire and Beth come back to the lake house, and they're all in black, and Beth has like some food from the wake or whatever, the reception after the funeral itself. Clearly, when she's inside the house by herself, she throws the food away and is kind of struggling to cope with it because obviously her husband just killed himself not too long ago. And so obviously Mel, both as a neighbor and Claire, are very concerned about her because, she's drinking a lot of wine. Um, Also, eventually Claire is able to convince Beth to come out and hang out with the friends there, because I can think right at this point she's going to a university for a degree or something. So she does end up showing back up to the college and everything, and her friends there, Claire, and I think they have like a group of friends that go to that college, and so they're probably in their 20s. It's not like they're really young, but in mid 20s or whatever. So they're probably getting some sort of later degree, which is more not really that important to the story itself, but just as far as like the friendship they have with each other. So it was like Claire, Beth, another girl, and a guy. And so they're at a bar and they're drinking and they're talking, and all of a sudden, it's quite clear that Beth is really struggling. Like she's downing beers and drinks and not being as sociable as everyone else is. And of course, the other girl and guys start like just asking her questions, like, how you doing? And like you could tell that Beth is just kind of agitated because like for everyone else, they kind of just deal with life as is, and she's still coping and trying to deal with it. And then whatever insinuations they say, like, so one moment the guy's asking, like, did you see this coming? She's like, no, I didn't. It just came out of nowhere. And, all the meantime, while the other girl and guy are asking questions, Claire's like, hey, guys, this is being insensitive. Let's not do this. But then Beth's just like, no, let's do this. Let's have this out. Let's talk. And the one other girl asked if there was a note left, and she says, yes, there actually was. But she reads the note, and it just says basically, you were right. I was wrong. There is nothing. You are safe now. And they kind of asked her, what does that mean? And Beth's like, I don't know. I don't know what that means. But later on, after Beth's had a lot to drink and Claire's got her back home at the lake house, Beth admits that she lied, that she didn't know what the note meant. So she later confesses to Claire, saying that there was a discussion with her and Owen, because years ago, before Owen, Beth had been in a car accident where she died for 4 minutes. When she came back, she said she saw no lights, no tunnel of love, nothing. She said it's just nothing. And at that point, Owen was like, "I don't believe you. Like I do. Like I guess his point was is he believes in the afterlife, that there's a heaven and all this, but Beth is very against that, saying no, there isn't. So it must have been some sort of thing. But ironically and coincidentally, in the note, Owen is acknowledging that she was right, and so it's kind of weird, right? Because he wrote the note before he passed away, so that's one of those weird things, right? Now also at this time, because she's staying at the lake house alone, she starts experiencing paranormal and weird things that go on in the house. And so either like there's one couple moments where the radio turns on by itself and it's playing a song that her and Owen used to listen to a lot of time. It's either like Pearl Jam or one of those alternative rock bands that I remember from the '90s. So it's something like that going on. And she hears like creaking at times, as well as like soft whispers talking to her. She finds herself at times like almost sleepwalking out of the house. Uh, she's also at times thinking that she saw like another version of her house. And so there's a lot of weird things going on with her. She was one time she was out by the dock area where the little boat was, and she can feel like a presence, and she's talking to it as if it's Owen and everything else. And at one point, it's kind of foggy out there a little bit, but she can see the dock, and she puts her flashlight down, and you just see these like bloody footprints sitting there. And so we really don't know exactly what's going on. We kind of assume, well, this could be Owen haunting her or whatever. That's what she sort of believes. So, but one day, she's kind of like still grasping at why this happened. So she starts kind of going through Owen's things, and gets his phone that's in there, and she discovers a few pictures of a woman that she like. The woman's in the library, and she has got her face towards the books, and the camera shots from this angle. And but Beth's like showing Claire. She's like, "Who is this?" And Claire's like, "Well, it's you. It's got to be." And Beth's like, "No, I don't have a blouse like this. Who is this?" So Claire's basically like, look, you just need to like quit freaking out. You need to quit digging. Like you're just driving yourself nuts doing this. And so that sort of puts Beth at ease a little bit. But then as Beth is walking out by the woods by the house, she comes across her neighbor Mel. And I forget at which point, I think Beth actually discovered there's like this other place that Owen was building by the house, by the lake house. Another place that looks exactly like their lake house, only it's like in reverse. The numbers are backwards and stuff like that. Like it's just a direct replication, only flipped the opposite end. Because Beth discovers like a sketchbook from the architect where it shows the same thing. So once she's found that other place, she confronts Mel and is like, "Look, you're telling me I shouldn't be walking out in these woods, but why?" And at this point, Mel's like, "Well, I had one time saw Owen walking down the trail with someone who I thought was you. And when the woman turned around, I realized it wasn't. And at that point, later on, Owen had approached Mel and said, look, I have some urges, and I'd appreciate it if you didn't tell Beth about this." And so Mel's now confessing to Beth that, he held that secret in. And this is all along because all of a sudden we realize that when Beth goes back home and she starts pulling out Owen's laptop, he's got all these pictures of women who look similar to her. Now, if you're like me at this point of the movie, you're like, I already think I know what's going on, right? Like, it sounds like, you know, you know, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not gonna give it away, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Uh, so I'm kind of putting things together in my own head with this going on, but in the story, uh, Beth ends up going and basically uh, going to the library, and she finds out that one of the girl in the picture that she has on the phone, is actually working there at the library. So she confronts this woman, and they start talking. And of course, the girl is kind of nervous at first because when Beth is introducing who she is and how she relates to Owen, this is news to the girl that's there. But the girl assures Beth that they never had sex, although they did flirt and they talked. Uh, and that was about it. And then Beth finally goes back home, but then like a few hours later, the girl shows up at her door, and Beth's kind of confused. She's like, "Well, how did you know where to find me?" And this girl says, "Well, I've been here before." And so she continues to tell Beth they never actually had sex. However, the relationship they had was the girl saying that she really was interested in Owen for sex and wanted to progress. But she stopped Owen when they were kissing because Owen started to choke her. And at that point, Owen apologized and took her home. So again, if you're me, you're like, interesting, right? Uh, so yeah, so I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna be giving too much away with this movie because as much as I got to this point, I'm like, okay, I already figured this movie out. It's shit, right? But there are other twists that go on in this film, and so yeah, there's some twists in here that change, and even though you'll probably figure out a good portion of it, it keeps you kind of guessing, which is good. Um, but I'll say here towards the end that I have some problems with just the character of Beth and some of the decision making, especially later in the film. Like, it's fine that she wanted to try to decipher why Owen killed himself. That's kind of a natural thing. But uh, there's a moment where Beth discovers something important, and instead of calling the authorities, she calls her best friend Claire. That's not logical, folks. It's just not. I can't take shit like that seriously with movies. Like, you don't have to pretend that we're dumb. You don't have to pretend that we don't understand that you've got this like thriller going on of sorts. But at the same time, like, you have to have some sort of logical explanation for a character's behavior, unless you're just batshit crazy, which isn't the case here. But you have that with the decision making, and of course, uh, some of this is stuff that we've seen in other movies as well. So, like, it's not breaking any new ground, so to speak. I mean, we've seen similar themes. The closest I can come to like what this kind of represents in some ways is like Stir of Echoes. If you remember that film, very good film, great film, no less. But Rebecca Hall is a great actress. I really enjoy her in this, for sure. This is better than Malignant that I had seen, which, even though they're not really similar in that way, but uh, just in terms of stuff that I've seen more recently over the last few months. But uh, rating wise, probably still about a 6 out of 10. So it's about average. Like I said, it's got some good tense moments, but I wouldn't say that I really want to watch this again. There's no rewatchability for me. Like I said, it's not covering any new ground. And then, of course, like I said, the decision making with certain things, you have to be kind of logical about it. Uh, if you're discovering something important, you have to do the right thing in terms of alerting the authorities about it. And I'm just like, you're not going to do that? Now, granted, in defense, by the time a lot of this happens, we're getting close to the end of the film anyway. So the final moments of the film are kind of leave it open in terms of what could have happened after it. So not so much for a sequel, just in terms of the characters, like what would have followed the next morning, basically. And so they can have, like, if the director ever wanted to come and say, well, if I had continued to make the movie longer, this is what would have happened after that final scene, right? And so maybe that's what his thinking process was, Bruckner. Maybe that's what he was thinking in terms of writing. But in terms of what he actually did for the film, it just really doesn't make a lot of sense at that particular juncture. So 6 out of 10 is pretty fair. It's on HBO Max right now. So if you're already a subscriber, check it out. If you want video demand me, it's not in theaters because it's been about a year or so when it came out. But I don't know if I could totally recommend it. If I had to balance it between this and Stir of Echoes, watch Stir of Echoes. Way better. So anyway, there you go. Thank you all, and take care of yourselves, folks.